Horror movie stories come from many different places, novels, plays, and oftentimes real life. However, urban legends are another popular source of horror storytelling, with them existing in the grey area between fiction and reality. Coming in at number 5, we have Touristas, 2006. One of the more gruesome urban legends on our list is organ theft, involving an organised criminal network which runs a black market for organs taken from kidnapped victims. The movie Touristas, also known as Paradise Lost in some countries, is inspired by these horrific legends. Released in 2006 and starring Josh Duhamel, Melissa George, and Olivia Wilde, the plot focuses on a group of international backpackers in Brazil who find themselves in the clutches of an underground organ harvesting ring. The urban legend itself has been around since at least the early 1990s and mostly involves the theft of one or both of the victims' kidneys. According to Jan Harold Brunvand, it's possible that the story originated due to a news story wherein a Turkish man, Ahmet Kok, claimed to have had his kidney stolen at a hospital, but had in fact sold his kidney and was unhappy at the amount of money he'd been paid. There are many variations of the legend where either a lone traveller is drugged or otherwise subdued, or where a child is kidnapped and harvested against their will. Regardless of the variation, Touristas is absolutely terrifying and is a must-watch for all things urban legends. Coming in at number 4, the Mothman Prophecies, 2002. In West Virginia folklore, the Mothman is a creature reportedly seen in the Point Pleasant area from November 12, 1966 to December 15, 1967. The first newspaper report was published in the Point Pleasant Register dated November 16, 1996, titled "Couples See Man-Sized Bird. Creature, something." On November 12, 1966, 5 men were digging a grave at a cemetery near Clenendon, West Virginia, and claimed to have seen a man-like figure flying low from the trees over their heads. This is often identified as the first known sighting of the Mothman. During the next few days, other people began to report similar sightings. 2 volunteer firemen who saw it said it was the large bird with red eyes. Contractor Newell Partridge told the sheriff that when he aimed a flashlight at a creature in a nearby field, its eyes glowed like bicycle reflectors, and blamed buzzing noises from his television set and the disappearances of his German Shepherd dog on the creature. Now, arguably the most famous sighting was after the December 15, 1967 collapse of the Silver Bridge and the death of 46 people. The incident gave rise to the legend and connected the Mothman to the collapse, with many spotting him around the bridge at the time of the incident. Now, the Mothman Prophecies ran with this legend back in 2002, with the movie starring Richard Gere and Laura Linney. The story follows John Klein, a reporter who researches the legend of Mothman. Still shaken by the death of his wife 2 years earlier in a mysterious accident, Klein is sent to cover a news piece and ends up inexplicably finding himself in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where there have been sightings of an unusual creature and other unexplained phenomena. Coming in at number 3, Black Christmas, 1974. Bob Clark's seminal slasher is perhaps the best example of the killer inside the house legend. Released in 1974, Black Christmas is a Canadian slasher starring Olivia Hussey, Margot Kidder, and John Saxon. The plot follows a group of sorority sisters who receive threatening phone calls and are eventually stalked and murdered by a deranged killer during the Christmas season. Now, the babysitter and the man upstairs, also known as the babysitter or the sitter, is an urban legend which dates back to the 1960s, about a teenage girl babysitting children. The children have been put to bed upstairs and the babysitter is downstairs watching TV. The phone rings. The caller tells her to check the children. The teenager dismisses the call and goes back to watching TV. The anonymous caller dials back several times. Eventually, the babysitter calls the police, who inform her they will trace the next call. After the stranger calls again, the police return her call, advising her to leave the house immediately because her call was coming from inside the home, with the unidentified prowler calling after killing and eating the children. However, Black Christmas takes this legend and puts an interesting spin on it, with the sorority house being harassed by a man they dub the Moaner, who calls and makes suggestive noises on the other end of the line. Like the legend though, the calls are coming from inside the house, and the girls are quickly disappearing. Coming in at number 2, Hoia Baciu Forest, Romania. The Hoia Forest is situated to the west of the city of Cluj-Napoca, near the open-air section of the Ethnographic Museum of Transylvania. It is a beautiful place that often lures in bikers and hikers from around the world. However, according to legend, the forest is the location of paranormal activity. According to one visitor, I quote, "We are in the clearing. The trees stop in a uniform oval where nothing grows and where, since official records began, nothing has grown. Once when I came here," says Alex, our guide, "I found 60 people from Bucharest trying to open a gate into another dimension." Now, the clearing is supposedly the creepiest place in the entire forest and is said to defy the investigations of soil scientists, and attracts Roman witches as well as people trying to clean the forest of its evil. Now, the forest first came to international attention in 1968, when a military technician by the name of Emil Barnier photographed what he believed was a UFO hovering over the clearing. Now, at the time, the communist government equated the belief in the paranormal as madness, as well as state sabotage, so in turn, Barnier lost his job. As of today, many people who visit the forest, and specifically the clearing, report strange symptoms, including nausea, anxiety, as well as the feeling of being watched. Not to mention, as I said before, nothing seems to grow in the clearing according to official records. Weirder still, trees in the surrounding area grow in odd patterns, zigzags and spirals that no one has been able to explain. Very creepy indeed. And finally, coming in at number 1, Aokigahara Forest, Japan. Also known as the Sea of Trees, or more commonly the Suicide Forest, this is a forest on the northwestern flank of Japan's Mount Fuji, existing on the hardened lava laid down by the last major eruption of Mount Fuji in 864 CE. The forest has a reputation as the home to ghosts of the dead in Japanese mythology. In more recent years, though, it has become known as the Suicide Forest, with it being one of the world's most used suicide sites. In 2003, 105 bodies were discovered in the forest, exceeding the previous record of around 78 back in 2002. Jumping forward to 2010, the police recorded more than 200 people having attempted suicide in the forest, of whom 54 were successful, which is absolutely devastating. Now, some people blame this horrific trend on the forest's association with demons in Japanese mythology. However, others credit it to the tightly packed trees, which make it easy to get lost in the forest and muffle sounds, in turn providing an isolated location. As you would expect, many spiritualists have visited the forest who have called the site a hotbed of paranormal activity. These people believe that the suicides in the forest have permeated the forest's trees, which in turn has generated paranormal activity in the area, preventing anyone who may enter from leaving the depths of the forest. Many hikers who decide to make their way through the dense forest will often mark their path with tape or string to make it easier to find their way out again, and those who visit say the forest is deeply unsettling, with the sprinkling of clothing and litter lying around.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the Mogollon Monster. If you've ever taken a drive up the 87, you might have come across a set of very colorful, very large footprints tracked across the highway. While these particular prints were put there by people, they are in homage to the Mogollon Monster, aka Arizona's answer to Bigfoot. This big beastie lives along the Mogollon Rim and has been seen from Prescott all the way to Clifton. Sightings of the monster date back to early as 1903, with plenty of reports of video, tracks, and hair samples appearing since. People claim that the Mogollon Monster is a bipedal humanoid towering over most at 7 feet tall, leaving behind 22-inch footprints. Like most ape-like beasts in the woods, it has crazy strength and some wild eyes. Some claim it's covered in long black hair, others say it's reddish-brown. Maybe it changes with the seasons, or maybe there's more than one. The Mogollon Monster is also known for smelling really, really bad. Like dead fish, skunk, BO, peat moss, and snapping turtle musk. I'd hide out in the woods if I smelled like that too. Part of the reason why it's so rarely sighted is that it tends to be active at night. It will hunt and gather all sorts of different foods under cover of darkness and make little nests for itself. If you stumble across one of these pine needle refuges, get the hell out of there. This beefy monster is known to be very territorial and very violent. It reportedly likes to decapitate deer and other wildlife before digging in, and if it can pull the dome off a deer, it can pop your top off like a bottle of Coke. Be careful if you hear any weird noises too, because the Mogollon Monster likes to mimic other wildlife. Birds, coyotes, it is even reported to shriek like a woman in distress. So don't go running off to save the damsel, because you might find yourself face to face with a very hairy hunter. Tie up your supplies if you're camping too, as the monster will rummage through stuff left out.
You know, they were all about the hairy man or the wild man or something like that. And of course I didn't believe them.
This, says Wade, is a small baby Bigfoot trying to hide in the corner from his night vision camera.
Coming in at number 4, we've got El Chupacabra. Ah, the Southwest classic. Such a strange creature, the Chupacabra. Is it an alien? A demon dog? Something else? Also known as the goat sucker, these cryptids love to feed on livestock, attacking in the night. Farmers and other animal owners have often found these creatures totally hollowed out following particularly dark nights. Common features of the Chupacabra attacks are a complete lack of blood and puncture wounds in the neck and hindquarters. The wounds are always super clean, no signs of struggle or messiness. Sometimes there are weird injuries too. Cattle often have their anuses cored out, and somehow, even with these brutal injuries, no blood is found. Do the goat suckers inject some sort of sedative? Do they have magical powers? We may never know. One theory is that they have wings and descend on their prey and drain them before they have time to react. This would also explain the lack of tracks that accompany Chupacabra attacks. Although, if they were so quick and clever, wouldn't they also attack humans? Maybe our blood just doesn't taste as good. Now, this legend didn't start in Arizona, but now it's quite prevalent. El Chupacabra seems to have originated in Puerto Rico and made its way into Latin America, eventually spreading to the southwestern states. Now you'd be hard-pressed to find an Arizonan without some sort of Chupacabra story. Tucson resident Billy Nubian claims that he saw one attacking his goats late one night. He was startled awake by the panic sounds of his goats bleeding. Running outside to investigate, he saw a huge rat-like creature pinning one of his goats. It then turned to face Billy, let out a blood-curdling scream, and ran off into the dark. Sarah A. has a similar story where she encountered a half-man, half-ape creature crouching frog-style in her yard. Freaky.
Coming in at number 3, we have the Enfield Poltergeist. Between the years of 1977 and 1979, the Enfield Poltergeist terrorized a small London house in the Enfield suburb. The case involved two sisters, aged 11 and 13. In August 1977, single parent Peggy Hodgson called police to her home, claiming she had witnessed furniture moving and that 2 of her 4 children said that knocking sounds were heard on their walls. The children included Margaret, who was 13 at the time, and Janet, who was 11. A police officer who investigated the scene recalled seeing a chair wobble and slide but could not determine the cause of movement. Later claims included disembodied voices, overturned chairs, and the children even levitating. Over the next year and a half, more than 30 people said that they saw heavy furniture moving on its own accord, objects being thrown around the room, and the children levitating. These people included psychic researchers, neighbors, and journalists. Creepier still, the young daughter Janet was also recorded speaking in a deep masculine voice, which was believed to be the spirit of an old man. Of course, the Warrens were called in to investigate this paranormal behavior, which they found was a case of demonic possession. Janet later went on to admit that she had played with a Ouija board prior to the disturbances, and that she was unaware that she fell into the trances until she saw photographs later on. However, many have called the Enfield Poltergeist fake, with Janet being detected in trickery with a video camera catching her bending spoons and attempting to bend an iron bar. So whatever you believe is up to you, legend or reality. Coming in at number 2, we have the Smurl family. The Smurl haunting refers to claims made by Jack and Janet Smurl, who alleged that a demon inhabited their home between 1974 and 1989. The family moved to West Pittston, Pennsylvania with their young daughters and Jack's parents, who all lived together in one house, and supposedly suffered the worst 13 years of their entire lives. Not long after moving into their new home, they claimed that the premises was disturbed by a demon that caused loud noises and bad odors. Through their dog into a wall, shook their mattress, pushed one of their daughters down a flight of stairs, and physically and sexually assaulted Jack on several occasions. The family were terrified and called in Ed and Lorraine Warren for help. The pair quickly discovered that the family home was infested with 4 spirits: an elderly woman who was harmless, an old man who had died at the house, a young and violent girl, and a demon that controlled the other spirits and had turned them against the family. By 1987, the family decided to leave the home once and for all, and 2 years later, a church-sanctioned exorcism took place there, and the property was cleared of all paranormal activity. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the Amityville Horror. The Amityville Horror is perhaps one of the, if not the most famous paranormal cases Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated. However, like the rest of our list, there is always debate as to how much was actually true. Some backstory to begin though. On November 13th, 1974 at 3:15 a.m, Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed his parents and siblings with a rifle while they were sleeping peacefully in their beds. Around a year later, the Lutz family moved into the home on Ocean Drive. However, after just 28 days, the Lutzes left the house claiming to have been terrorized by paranormal phenomena while living there. Supposedly, during their time living there, a priest was called in to bless the home, and he warned the family, do not use the upstairs room as a bedroom and do not let anyone sleep in there. Within days, things began to go wrong for the happy family. Their young daughter made an imaginary friend with a red-eyed pig. Foul odors filled each room, furniture moved and levitated, and banging would frequently be heard throughout the house at night, in turn forcing the family to flee. Enter Ed and Lorraine Warren. The pair investigated the house and soon discovered that the land the house had been built on had previously been used by a practicing black magician who had requested to be buried on the land, and he remains there to this day. A TV crew was also called in to film the investigation, with them snapping a photo that seemed to show a boy with glowing eyes. In a 2013 interview, Lorraine Warren said that the Amityville house was the one case that haunted her the most. She also went on to state during a press conference for The Conjuring, I quote, "Amityville was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. It followed us straight across the country. I will never go to the Amityville house ever again." Whether you believe the story or not, something certainly spooked the Warrens enough to never return there again. Coming in at number 5, we have Devil's Tramping Ground, North Carolina. The Devil's Tramping Ground is a camping spot located in a forest near the Harper's Crossroads area in Bear Creek, North Carolina. Throughout history, it has been the subject of persistent local legends and lore, which frequently allege that the devil tramps and haunts a barren circle of ground in which nothing is said to grow. It has also been listed frequently on lists of unusual place names, as you would expect. In North Carolina, tales about the ring, also known as the circle of ground, are well known. These include the disappearance of objects left within the ring overnight, dogs howling, and strange events occurring to those who are brave enough to spend the night within its boundaries. It has been alleged, as I previously mentioned, that nothing has grown within the ring for 100 years. Legend says that this is the very place that the devil himself can rise from the depths of fiery hell and thus come to earth. Sounds great to me. It is also said that at this place the devil is supposed to walk in circles on certain nights and bring his evil into this world. Journalist John William Harden wrote about the area, stating, "Chatham natives say that the devil goes there to walk in circles as he thinks up new means of causing trouble for humanity. There, sometimes during the dark of night, the majesty of the underworld of evil silently tramps around that bare circle, thinking, plotting and planning against good in behalf of wrong." In at number 4, we have Wychwood Forest, England. Wychwood Forest is a biological site of special scientific interest north of Witney in Oxfordshire. Now, unlike the rest of our list, there is no historic event that took place that confirms the forest is in fact haunted. However, it is said by those who step foot in the area that there is hair-raising stuff going on amongst the trees. Some people have reported seeing the apparitions of crying children in a horse-drawn carriage, to even ghostly hands touching them. A more notable story is that of the ghost of Amy Robsart, the wife of the Earl of Leicester. Amy mysteriously died of a broken neck, and one day while hunting in the Wychwood Forest, her husband was said to have stumbled across her ghost. According to the legend, her ghost told him that he would be dead in 10 days. And that he was. The legend has lived on, and it is said that if you dwell in the Wychwood Forest, you will meet the same grisly end as Amy's husband. Coming in at number 3, the Black Forest, Germany. The Black Forest is a large forested mountain range in the state of Baden-Württemberg in southwest Germany. Historically, the area was known for ore deposits, which led to mining featuring heavily in the local economy. However, in more recent years, tourism has become the primary industry, accounting for around 140,000 jobs. Now, the forest itself got its name from the conifers that block out most light below, giving the area a mysterious aura. The forest is nestled deep within the southwestern Germany, with the area's tall evergreens being as sinister as they are beautiful. It is also said to be home to paranormal creatures ranging from witches to even werewolves. This in turn inspired the Brothers Grimm to write their famous stories, Hansel and Gretel, Rapunzel, and Sleeping Beauty. Some of the many legends that surround the forest goes as follows: a headless huntsman riding on a white steed, a king who kidnaps women to take them to his underwater lair, and of course friendly dwarfs and frightening werewolves. It makes sense now why this would be the location of many of the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales. Coming in at number 2, Urban Legend 1998. Now, most of the movies on our list take a simple legend and use it as the basis of their story. However, the movie Urban Legend is a celebration of a lot of myths and legends throughout history. The movie itself was released in 1998 and is a slasher movie directed by Jamie Blanks and starring Jared Leto, Rebecca Gayheart, and Tara Reid. The plot focuses on a series of murders on the campus of a private New England university, all of which appear to be modelled after popular urban legends. Now, the first of these legends is the killer in the back seat. The legend involves a woman who is driving and being followed by a car or truck. The mysterious pursuer flashes their high beams or sometimes even rams the vehicle. When she finally makes it home, she realizes that the driver was trying to warn her that there was a man hiding in her back seat. Each time the man set up to attack her, the driver behind her used their high beams to scare the killer, causing him to duck back down. In other variations, as seen in the movie, the woman stops at a gas station and a stuttering gas attendant tries to help her, but she runs in fear and flees to her car, only to be murdered by the man in the back seat. The next legend to be referenced was the Pop Rocks and Soda. Now, Little Mikey is a fictional boy played by John Gilchrist in a TV commercial promoting Quaker Oats breakfast cereal Life. Years after the original commercial appeared, an urban legend spread that the actor who had played Little Mikey had died after eating an unexpectedly lethal combination of Pop Rocks and soda, which caused his stomach to inflate with carbon dioxide. However, this was of course not true. The movie is honestly great fun if you want to guess which legend they will dispatch to the next unlucky teenager. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Candyman, 1992. Bernard Rose's terrifying Clive Barker adaptation combines two terrifying urban legends, that of Bloody Mary and the legend of the Hook. Now, first and foremost, Candyman is a 1992 supernatural horror film starring Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd, based on the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker. The film follows a Chicago graduate student completing a thesis on the urban legends which led her to the legend of the Candyman, the ghost of an artist and son of a slave who was murdered in the late 19th century. Now, the first urban legend the movie is based upon is that of Bloody Mary, who is said to appear in a mirror when her name is chanted repeatedly. The Bloody Mary apparition may be benign or malevolent, depending on historic variations of the legend. Now, this is what goes down in Candyman, with his name being repeatedly called and his hook appearing from within the mirror, reaching out and killing unsuspecting victims. This in turn leads us on to our second urban legend, the Hook. The Hook, or the Hookman, is an urban legend about an escaped killer with a pirate-like hook for a hand, attacking a couple in a parked car. Now, the horrors of Candyman takes place in a housing project, and the narrative deliberately sets the violence off by placing it against the backdrop of a racial injustice. It's a genre classic and a crucial entry in the black horror canon. Coming in at number 5, Union Cemetery. Union Cemetery is located near Stepney Road in eastern Connecticut. The site dates back to the 1700s, and according to ghost hunters, it is one of the most haunted cemeteries in the entire United States. Now, as you'd expect, Ed and Lorraine Warren were quick to involve themselves in the mystery surrounding the cemetery, with the pair even writing a book about the site entitled Graveyard. According to popular legends, the White Lady ghost haunts Union Cemetery as well as Stepney Cemetery in Monroe. The White Lady has been seen walking in front of people's cars as they drive along Route 59, late at night. Concerned drivers believed that they had hit a person, exit their vehicles only to discover there was no one there. The White Lady name comes from witnesses who states that she wore either a white gown or what appeared to be a wedding dress. Now, in 1990, Ed and Lorraine Warren set up cameras in the cemetery to record the investigation. Around 2:40 a.m. they heard the sound of a woman weeping, and a female form had begun to move several feet in their direction. As Ed began to approach her, she vanished from sight. Nowadays, the cemetery is known to close after sunset. Coming in at number 4, we have the Werewolf in London. Bill Ramsey from Southend-on-Sea in England was considered living proof that werewolves actually exist. Now, the first inkling of trouble for Bill came when he was just 9 years old. One day he was outside in his garden playing when he began to feel strange. An icy blast swept all over him, perspiration froze on his skin, and a foul stench made him need to vomit. Then, out of nowhere, anger and rage took over, and young Bill uprooted a fence post, with the fence still attached, and began swinging it around like a club. Should be noted that not even his parents could remove that fence post. Now, all returned to normal for a while. Ramsey grew up, became a loving husband and father of 3, and was instant-free up until the 1960s. During this time, he began to be plagued by nightmares, cold sweats, and waking up panting like a wild animal. Not long after, he began to feel the same sensations he had that day in the garden when he was 9, and on one occasion he attacked a friend in a car on their way from a pub and manhandled police on several occasions. In turn, Ramsey was forced to spend time in the hospital, where it was noted that he exhibited inhuman strength, growling, and his hands would often curl like claws. Ed and Lorraine Warren were thus called in to investigate. Ed Warren stated that, I quote, Ramsey would ask to be locked up in jail cell for his protection and the protection of the public. The Warrens then invited Ramsey to their Connecticut home, where Bishop Robert McKenna would perform a recorded exorcism on Ramsey.
Coming in at number 3, we've got skinwalkers. These Navajo legends have been cited all over, but have quite a reputation in Arizona. Medicine men possessed by spirits having to choose between good and evil. Often hermits being exiled from their communities. They take the forms of many animals and travel through the wastes. If driving through the arid desert at night wasn't unsettling enough, just wait until you hear about what skinwalkers like to do. Often they'll travel alongside lone vehicles in the dark, even when the car is hoofing it. They'll tap on the windows of the vehicle, trying to get the driver's attention. If the driver stops to see what's going on and gets out of their car, it's not likely that they're coming back. Yikes. There are some hot spots that locals try to avoid at night. Apparently there's a ranch that has been given the name Skinwalker Ranch, thanks to the huge amounts of reports made. And San Carlos Reservation is also a place most will warn you away from during the night. Although most forests at night have their fair share of spooky denizens. There's one tale of a man camping alone that really makes you question whether a little adventure is worth it or not. He was hiking along with his dog and found an empty cave to set up camp in. As he unpacked his stuff, he noticed some unsettling cave paintings along the walls. Later that same night, he was woken up by his dog ferociously barking. As he sat up to see what was the matter, he saw a malformed creature slinking near the entrance of the cave. Acting quickly, he shot at it with his rifle, but this only stunned the creature. It called out to him, saying that it wanted to help. Sure. At this point, the man grabbed his dog and hightailed it out of there, leaving all his stuff. He hasn't gone back since. Hopefully he didn't leave anything too valuable behind, although he did escape with his dog and his life, which are valuable enough. Coming in at number 2, we've got the Haunted Antique Mall. Back to Tucson for more terror and troubles, there's an old 2-story furniture store that was converted into an antique mall of sorts. You know the kind, set up like a flea market with all sorts of independent booths selling their wares. Well, one day customers were walking around upstairs looking at the assorted antiques, and they heard some clicking noises. One particularly curious antiquer decided to investigate and found the source. An old typewriter. The thing is, no one was around to operate it. The customers who had heard the typing were the only people upstairs. After that, more and more ghostly tales appeared. Furniture that was left neat and tidy at closing would be strewn throughout the aisles the next morning. Radios would increase in volume with no one around. Employees found themselves frozen in place from time to time, experiencing a distortion of time. They would be stuck there as customers passed by in fast or slow motion. Apparitions would appear all over, sometimes appearing as a grinning boy, other times as a mischievous-looking teenager. Nobody knows who these wraiths belong to. After hearing loud crashing noises upstairs but finding nothing displaced, the owners decided it was time to close down the upper level. Now, considering that all sorts of people were bringing in antiques from different sources, it is possible that all these ghosts came from haunted objects. Or it could be that the furniture store itself is haunted. Nobody's come up with concrete proof of the hauntings, but if you ever find yourself antiquing in Tucson, watch out for paranormal activity. And finally, at number 1, the ghosts of Slaughterhouse Canyon. I mean, the name of this canyon should be enough to give me to its bad news. Let me say it again. Slaughterhouse Canyon. Come on. The tale that accompanies the terrifying name comes from the gold rush back in the 1800s. A young family moved out to try their hand at striking it rich. However, this plan did not go very well. Soon they were hungry and destitute. The father would often head out for days, searching for food to sustain him and his family. Tragically, one day he never returned. Without the father to keep them fed, the family slowly starved. As their bodies wasted away, so too did their minds. Eventually, the mother couldn't take it anymore. Her children's cries were too much for her to bear. She donned her wedding dress and ritualistically killed her children. Carrying the corpses down to the nearby river, she wept and screamed. After she dropped their bodies into the water, she wandered around until succumbing to starvation soon after. This sad story forever marred the reputation of Slaughterhouse Canyon. Now, if you visit at night, you might be able to hear the pained cries of the murderous mad mother. Tragic and terrifying. Coming in at number 5, we have the Cannibal Babysitter. Like most great urban legends, this is a tale that has been adapted for many different audiences. Back before the inception of the internet, a similar tale was told of a babysitter who may have been drunk, may have been high, but definitely accidentally cooked a baby instead of a meal. Whoops. It plays on the classic parental fear of leaving your child with someone else. Sure, you'd like to put your trust in someone and have some time to yourself, but how do you really know what's happening if you're not there yourself? Imagine coming home to a sink full of greasy bones and a lunatic babysitter lounging on your couch. Yeah, those aren't chicken bones, are they? To modernize this tale, the World News Daily Report put out an article headlined, "Missouri, Babysitter on Crystal Meth Eats 3-month-old Toddler." This is a masterpiece of a shareable article. Parents, people who hate addicts, people who watch horror movies, and Missourians all have a reason to be invested here. Is Missourians a real word? The article details a couple coming home after a night out to find their babysitter drunk and high, covered in blood. Not a good scene. They head to the kitchen and discover something even more terrifying. Their baby in the microwave, covered in barbecue sauce. How anyone could read this and not think it's a joke is beyond me. But apparently it was effective enough to cause a small panic and spread to all sorts of places. Unfortunately for those who skim headlines, it was all a hoax. The World News Daily Report is a fake news site. Not quite parody, but definitely not to be taken seriously. They even put a little disclaimer at the bottom saying that they're not including any reality in their articles. Although I suppose people fooled by this don't often read all the way to the bottom though. Coming in at number 4, what's in my Red Bull? We all know that energy drinks are often under fire for including artificial stimulants. They'll rot your brain, teeth, gut, and hardwood flooring, or so I've been told. Remember that lady who had the whole science fair presentation on why Monster Energy drink is actually the mark of the devil? 666? Good times. Well, if you wanted to scare the crap out of vegans, cowboys, and generally anybody who doesn't want to unknowingly ingest reproductive fluids, you could tell them about this urban legend. Somehow, the rumor that Red Bull includes bull semen in their beverages took off. You see, Red Bull has taurine. This is an organic acid which is actually often found in infant milk formulas. If we dive a little deeper into this word, taurine, we'll find a couple of things. 1, tor is a Greek or Latin root for bull. Still with me? The second half, "ine," something derived from a bull, eh? Understandably, people thought of this and immediately came to the conclusion that taurine is something made by a bull, which is actually supported by the fact that it was originally isolated from ox bile. Although these days we know that it's found in many more animals, including humans. But back to the stuff made from bulls, people heard taurine and then saw that big red bull on the front of the can and thought, geez, what are they taking from bulls? This stuff that gives you energy? Makes you feel alive? Are the good folks at Red Bull feeding us vital essence from bulls? Ew. Once this conclusion was made, it spread like wildfire. In fact, it became such a popular theory that Red Bull had to address it on their website. If you visit it and look at the FAQ, you can find a Q&A pertaining to the idea of testicles in your drink. Q. Is taurine made from bull's testicles? Is taurine a derivative of bull's testicles or semen? A. The taurine in Red Bull energy drink is a purely synthetic substance produced by pharmaceutical companies and is not derived from animals or animal materials. All ingredients for Red Bull energy drinks are synthetically produced by pharmaceutical companies. This guarantees the highest quality. So there you have it. No need to worry about any funny business in your Red Bull. Just try not to drink too much in celebration.
Coming in at number 3, the monster of Elizabeth Lake. Now I should preface this point by saying that there are at least 10 different Elizabeth Lakes in California, but the one we're talking about today is in LA County near Palmdale, and is perhaps the oldest one in the state. Now it is said that Elizabeth Lake was created by the devil himself for the keeping of his hellish pets. The legend also goes on to state that if you swim deep enough, you will stumble across the passageway to hell. Throughout the years, there have been countless sightings of a monster that is said to have the neck of a giraffe, head of a bulldog, bat wings, and is said to be 50 feet long with a rancid scent of decay. For over a century, sightings have been reported and strike fear into the locals' hearts. It is said that locals have been so scared that landowners would actually sell or completely abandon their properties. Not to mention any attempt to build on the lake's land has come to no avail. At night, residents could hear screams from the lake and would have horribly disturbing visions. Farm animals would also disappear and sightings of flying winged creatures were also reported. However, like all urban legends, any proof of creatures' existence or death is yet to be discovered. Coming in at number 2, we have Turnbull Canyon hauntings. Turnbull Canyon is a 4-mile loop located near Whittier, California, and is part of Puente Hills Preserve. Turnbull is known for the view it provides of the Heisler Temple and Rose Hills Memorial Park. However, it has also been the source of rumors regarding paranormal activities. Death is said to reside within the canyon, the place itself once being referred to as Hutuknan, which means the place of the devil. The legend tells of the region being haunted by the Indians who were murdered for not converting to Catholicism. Their spirits are now said to linger in unrest in the canyon. Years later, Turnbull would also be the site of numerous satanic rituals held by cults attempting to conjure demons or even Satan himself, often by sacrificing children from the nearby orphanages. However, one day one of the sinister cult suddenly vanished, and what was left behind in their wake were paranormal sightings and occurrences being reported by hikers and locals, who have also claimed to have seen hooded figures, hellish creatures, not to mention more mysterious deaths have since occurred, with one teenager being electrocuted while exploring the ruins by an old asylum in the canyon. A plane also crashed there in 1978, taking the lives of 29 people. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the Hollywood sign spirit. Probably one of the most infamous legends to come out of California is the Hollywood sign spirit, which is said to be haunted by early 1900s actress Peg Entwistle. Entwistle was a British stage and screen actress who began her career back in 1925, appearing in several Broadway productions. By 1932, during the height of the Great Depression, Entwistle was in Los Angeles with a role in the Romney Brent play The Mad Hope starring Billy Burke. Following that, Entwistle found her first and only credited film role for radio pictures called 13 Women. However, on September 18, 1932, a woman was hiking below the Hollywood sign when she found a woman's shoe, purse, and jacket. She opened the purse and found a suicide note, after which she looked down the mountain and saw the body below. Entwistle's body remained unidentified until her uncle, with whom she had been living with, identified her remains. The suicide note was eventually published and read as follows: "I am afraid. I am a coward. I am sorry for everything. If I had done this a long time ago, it would have saved a lot of pain. P.E." Nowadays, Entwistle is referred to as the Lady in White, who is said to appear to people hiking to the off-limits part of the sign, where she killed herself. However, as opposed to appearing as the beautiful actress she is often seen with a skeletal face and deep hollowed-out eyes. It is also said that if hikers are alone, the Lady in White will influence them to also plummet off the Hollywood sign. Coming in at 5, rats in the toilet. Urban legends about animals in sewers have been rife throughout history, with the most notable being the alligators and crocodiles in the sewers of New York, which for the most part actually turned out to be true. However, the thought of finding something in your toilet inches away from vulnerable areas of your body, well, that's something nobody wants to think about. While the alligators and crocodiles are a far reach, this legend seems to have some elements of truth. A toilet drain is just wide enough for a rat to climb up, first and foremost, with the animals being attracted to sewage lines due to undigested food in feces. They follow the pipes and boom, wind up in your toilet bowl. Back in 1999, a woman in Virginia got a nasty fright when she went to the toilet and found a rat there waiting for her. Honestly, I've never feared a toilet before, but I certainly do now. Apparently this has happened enough times for public officials to put out a warning. If you encounter a rat in your toilet, close the lid and flush. Godspeed. Coming in at number 4, the Bunny Man. The Bunny Man is an urban legend that originated in Fairfax County, Virginia back in 1970. The legend has many variations, but for the most part involves a man wearing a rabbit costume who attacks people with an axe or hatchet. Most of the stories occur around Colchester Overpass, a southern railway overpass spanning Colchester Road near Clifton, Virginia, sometimes referred to as Bunny Man Bridge. In the tale, an escaped mental patient takes to gutting bunnies and hanging them from the bridge, but later escalated to the madman hanging teens in a similar manner. However, the legend is based out of reality. Following extensive research into the Bunny Man, the legend was linked to 2 cases of a man in rabbit costumes threatening people with an axe, with the vandalism reports occurring 10 days apart in 1970 in Burke, Virginia. The first incident occurred on the night of October 19th, 1970 by US Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée, who were visiting relatives in Burke. While returning from a football game that evening, they reportedly parked their car in a field to visit an uncle who lived across the street. As they sat in the car, they noticed something moving outside the rear window. Moments later, the front passenger window smashed and there stood a figure in a bunny costume. As they drove away, the couple discovered a hatchet on the car floor. The second reported sighting occurred on the night of October 29, 1970, when construction security guard Paul Phillips approached a man standing on a porch of a home on Guinea Road. The man was wearing a white bunny costume and appeared to be around 20 years old. According to Paul, the man stated, I quote, "You are trespassing. If you come any closer, I'll chop off your head." Now, while neither incidents resulted in death or disembowelment, the thought of an adult in a bunny costume wielding a hatchet is absolutely terrifying.
Coming in at number 3, we have HIV oranges. On the topic of unwanted bodily fluids in our foods and beverages, let's consider the curious case of the contaminated citrus. In February of 2015, somebody posted an image of sliced oranges on Facebook. The oranges had little bits of red coloration in them, and they were not blood oranges. Or were they? According to the poster, the oranges had come from Libya and were seized in Algeria on the grounds that they had been injected with HIV-positive blood. The post read, "The immigration services of Algeria recovered a large quantity of these oranges coming from Libya. These oranges were injected with positive tested HIV and AIDS blood. Please share this message and warn people of the dangers involved." I mean, if the wording of that message doesn't convince you someone put their blood in oranges, I don't know what will. The image was found all over the place after that, with people either being really skeptical of the bloody fruit or having absolute freak-out meltdowns. Regardless of the reaction, there's no real threat here. Firstly, it's obviously a hoax based on the baselessness of the claims and the lack of official language in the original post. Somebody just decided that oranges coming from Africa must have some sort of HIV risk involved, as weird xenophobic people tend to do. Secondly, there is no threat of HIV transfer either way. HIV can't be transferred via fruit. The rare cases where HIV has been transferred via foods happens when food is pre-chewed by an HIV-infected caregiver. And these oranges, not pre-chewed. You can't get HIV from consuming food handled by an HIV-positive person. Even if it did contain small amounts of blood, which it likely doesn't, the virus would be destroyed by exposure to air, heat, or stomach acid. And who would put blood in an entire shipment's worth of oranges anyways? Coming in at number 2, we have Obamacare microchips. What a fun pairing of words, am I right? Back when Obamacare was first being introduced, people spread rumors that US residents would be required to be implanted with RFID microchips. Because, you know, Obama, I guess. But rumors of Big Brother wanting you riddled with tracking devices have been around since that kind of technology was first dreamed up. Folks are always worried that the government's going to tie them down and staple a blinking sensor into your spine or something. The Obamacare microchip legend began with some real documentation though. However, there were two things wrong with the rumor. One, it was taken from an outdated piece of tabled legislation that never passed, and two, the legislation they were looking at was misread and misinterpreted. See, someone pulled the phrase, "This sort of device be implanted in the majority of people who opt to become covered by the public healthcare option" out of some healthcare legislation in 2010. This particular passage was used as damning evidence that Obama wanted to track every citizen come hell or high water. However, this sentence was from an earlier version of legislation that wasn't passed by Congress. And if you're worried that Congress attempted to pass some bills that mandated microchips for every American, fret not. It was actually referring to a healthcare registry that would allow the Department of Health and Human Services to collect data about medical devices like pacemakers and hip replacements. It was meant to help track effectiveness and facilitate the distribution of manufacturer recall notices. No microchips necessary. It makes sense that people are scared of having their every move tracked though. There's something ironic about that crowd sharing these theories on Facebook for iOS though. And finally at number 1, Charlie Charlie. A sort of modernized Bloody Mary, Charlie Charlie was a spirit summoning game for the online era. In 2015, the Charlie Charlie challenge blew up. Videos of kids putting 2 pencils on a piece of paper labeled yes and no were everywhere. Apparently, if done correctly, you could get a demon or ghost to answer simple questions. The origins of said demon or ghost varied widely depending on who you asked. Some said it was a Mexican spirit, and others said it was a child who was abused. Earlier tellings of the story seemed to favor the child, which in retrospect makes sense. What kind of Mexican ghost has the name Charlie? Carlos, maybe, but there's no Spanish history in the name Charles. Regardless of the ghost's backstory, it scared a whole lot of people. Most of the movement in the pencils could probably be attributed to gravity in the wind, or the nervous shaking and breathing of whoever set it up, but folks really thought there was a demon in their presence. To double down on the urban legenditude, it was also claimed that Charlie Charlie was a viral marketing scheme. People seem to think that the marketing team behind the movie The Gallows created the challenge to market their movie. Snopes stepped up and did some background research and found that early examples of the challenge predated the movie and its marketing. However, the idea that the Gallows co-opted the viral spookfest and used it smartly to promote their product isn't too far-fetched. How many of these have you personally experienced?
Coming in at number 5, we have Devil's Tramping Ground, North Carolina. The Devil's Tramping Ground is a camping spot located in a forest near the Harper's Crossroads area in Bear Creek, North Carolina. Throughout history, it has been the subject of persistent local legends and lore, which frequently allege that the devil tramps and haunts a barren circle of ground in which nothing is said to grow. It has also been listed frequently on lists of unusual place names, as you would expect. In North Carolina, tales about the ring, also known as the circle of ground, are well known. These include the disappearance of objects left within the ring overnight, dogs howling, and strange events occurring to those who are brave enough to spend the night within its boundaries. It has been alleged, as I previously mentioned, that nothing has grown within the ring for 100 years. Legend says that this is the very place that the devil himself can rise from the depths of fiery hell and thus come to earth. Sounds great to me. It is also said that at this place the devil is supposed to walk in circles on certain nights and bring his evil into this world. Journalist John William Harden wrote about the area, stating, "Chatham natives say that the devil goes there to walk in circles as he thinks up new means of causing trouble for humanity. There, sometimes during the dark of night, the majesty of the underworld of evil silently tramps around that bare circle, thinking, plotting and planning against good in behalf of wrong." In at number 4, we have Wychwood Forest, England. Wychwood Forest is a biological site of special scientific interest north of Witney in Oxfordshire. Now, unlike the rest of our list, there is no historic event that took place that confirms the forest is in fact haunted. However, it is said by those who step foot in the area that there is hair-raising stuff going on amongst the trees. Some people have reported seeing the apparitions of crying children in a horse-drawn carriage, to even ghostly hands touching them. A more notable story is that of the ghost of Amy Robsart, the wife of the Earl of Leicester. Amy mysteriously died of a broken neck, and one day while hunting in the Wychwood Forest, her husband was said to have stumbled across her ghost. According to the legend, her ghost told him that he would be dead in 10 days. And that he was. The legend has lived on, and it is said that if you dwell in the Wychwood Forest, you will meet the same grisly end as Amy's husband. Coming in at number 3, the Black Forest, Germany. The Black Forest is a large forested mountain range in the state of Baden-Württemberg in southwest Germany. Historically, the area was known for ore deposits, which led to mining featuring heavily in the local economy. However, in more recent years, tourism has become the primary industry, accounting for around 140,000 jobs. Now, the forest itself got its name from the conifers that block out most light below, giving the area a mysterious aura. The forest is nestled deep within the southwestern Germany, with the area's tall evergreens being as sinister as they are beautiful. It is also said to be home to paranormal creatures ranging from witches to even werewolves. This in turn inspired the Brothers Grimm to write their famous stories, Hansel and Gretel, Rapunzel, and Sleeping Beauty. Some of the many legends that surround the forest goes as follows: a headless huntsman riding on a white steed, a king who kidnaps women to take them to his underwater lair, and of course friendly dwarfs and frightening werewolves. It makes sense now why this would be the location of many of the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales.
Coming in at number 2, we've got the Lonavala Ghost. This tale comes from a member of the Indian Paranormal team. They've been investigating paranormal activity for the better part of a decade, doing plenty of ghost walks in purportedly haunted areas all over India. A lot of the places they visit have, well, exaggerated reputations, but apparently a trip to Lonavala uncovered more than what they bargained for. Lonavala is known for being a romantic getaway of sorts, with plenty of greenery and tiered waterfalls to boot. Apparently ghosts find it an attractive place too. The team member who told the story was with 4 other people, and they had stopped their car for a smoke break. The wind was blowing westward, and all of a sudden a can flew south against the current. The group was a little freaked out by this. They went back to the car and found that the windshield was totally fogged up from the inside. At this point they knew something was up, so they asked any presence to reveal itself. Nothing happened, so they all got in the car. Right before they drove away, there was a knock at the window. However, the 5 paranormal investigators were sure that they were the only ones around. After this knock, the car began to shake violently. One person described it as if they were in a tin of biscuits. Being seasoned paranormal investigators, they all took out their recording devices. A woman could be heard speaking in Marathi and told the tale of her death. She and some friends had come out to Lonavla and were lost. Before she could find her bearings, she took a wrong step and fell off a cliff, and she's roamed the area as a ghost ever since. The team asked if there was anything they could do to help her pass on to the next life, but she never responded. So take this as a warning. No matter how picturesque a location is, there might be something sinister lurking in the shadows. And finally, at number 1, we've got the Udhampur Army Quarters. This one is well known enough that people will tell you to actively avoid the area if you're on vacation. This old military compound is said to be haunted by supernatural souls. Locals have seen floating apparitions for years. These specters will appear in the sky for a few seconds at a time before disappearing into the dark. To make things spookier, as these spirits fade away, they make weird noises and produce flashes of light. This petrifying display has disturbed folks for ages. Some say that these figures are the ghosts of long-dead soldiers visiting their old stomping grounds. Others claim that they're apparitions of ghouls visiting Earth looking to cause trouble. Even though these oddities have only been spotted between 1 and 3 a.m., many warn people away from the area entirely. You can never be too careful, apparently. Kicking us off at number 5, we've got the Red Room Curse. If you're familiar with the dark web, or maybe even some Cronenbergian techno fetishes, you might assume that Red Room means murder broadcast, and technically, you're correct. But there's more than one Red Room out there, and the one we'll discuss today is a little less voyeuristic. Just as online, though. The Red Room is an internet legend about a cursed pop-up that would appear from time to time on people's computers. It would show a door and ask, "Do you like the Red Room?" Now you can answer yes or no or maybe, but the result is going to be the same. People who have come across the pop-up are invariably found dead. Their room becomes the Red Room, with the walls covered in their blood. Shortly after the legend gained traction, a flash animation of a boy cursed by the pop-up showed up. It was quite popular at the time. In fact, it linked a real-life murder to the Red Room curse. The schoolgirl that committed the Sasebo slashing in 2004 was found to be a fan of the flash animation. The 11-year-old student killed her classmate with a utility knife, slashing her throat and arms. When questioned by police, she admitted to the crime and said that she had been bullied online. The girl she killed had called her a goody-goody and made mean comments about her weight. In addition to bookmarking the Red Room animation, it's also worth noting that the killer had read and watched Battle Royale, where school-age students fight to the death. Now, links between violent media and violence are always weak at best, but this is quite the interesting development. I knew pop-ups were annoying, but to lead to something like this? Sheesh. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Kune Kune. While researching this, I also found that Kune Kune is a very cute breed of pig. No relation. But if you get scared, maybe consider taking a look at a picture of a pig or two to take your mind off the spooks. The Japanese urban legend Kune Kune is a lot less cute. In fact, try to look too close and you'll really regret it. The myth originated online around 2003 with people giving first-hand accounts of seeing this being. These reports were not unlike early accounts of Slender Man, with folks claiming to have seen or photographed something strange with bad things happening afterwards. Kune Kune translates roughly to wriggling body, which is exactly what it does. It's a slender humanoid made of white paper or fabric that appears in fields on hot summer days around lunchtime. It's been seen on wide open rice fields most often, and sometimes even over open water. If there is a great expanse, you might see Kune Kune off in the distance. This thing wiggles its limbs about endlessly, as if it's being constantly blown by wind, even when there is none. It can only be seen from a distance. Interestingly enough though, people that seem to be right beside it don't tend to notice its presence. People have reported seeing workers on fields go about their business without so much as a passing glance at the thing. If you do see one from far away, do not try to get any closer. Looking too closely at a Kune Kune can cause you to go insane, and if you try to get close enough to touch one, it might kill you. Keeping your distance and not attempting contact is the best strategy here. It ignores people who offer it the same amount of disregard. Now, because of all the details concerning distance and lack of close-up confrontation, many skeptics claim that Kune Kune is just people's overacting imaginations, misinterpreting maybe a scarecrow or a wick drain. But you will not find me hurtling through rice fields to find out.
Coming in at number 2, Hoia Baciu Forest, Romania. The Hoia Forest is situated to the west of the city of Cluj-Napoca, near the open-air section of the Ethnographic Museum of Transylvania. It is a beautiful place that often lures in bikers and hikers from around the world. However, according to legend, the forest is the location of paranormal activity. According to one visitor, I quote, "We are in the clearing. The trees stop in a uniform oval where nothing grows and where, since official records began, nothing has grown. unknown. Once when I came here, says Alex, our guide, I found 60 people from Bucharest trying to open a gate into another dimension. Now the clearing is supposedly the creepiest place in the entire forest and is said to defy the investigations of soil scientists, and attracts Roman witches as well as people trying to clean the forest of its evil. Now the forest first came to international attention in 1968 when a military technician by the name of Emil Barnier photographed what he believed was a UFO hovering over the clearing. Now at the time, the communist government equated the belief in the paranormal as madness as well as state sabotage, so in turn Barnier lost his job. As of today, many people who visit the forest, and specifically the clearing, report strange symptoms including nausea, anxiety, as well as the feeling of being watched. Not to mention, as I said before, nothing seems to grow in the clearing according to official records. Weirder still, trees in the surrounding area grow in odd patterns, zigzags and spirals that no one has been able to explain. Very creepy indeed. And finally, coming in at number 1, Aokigahara Forest, Japan. Also known as the Sea of Trees, or more commonly the Suicide Forest, this is a forest on the northwestern flank of Japan's Mount Fuji, existing on the hardened lava laid down by the last major eruption of Mount Fuji in 864 CE. The forest has a reputation as the home to ghosts of the dead in Japanese mythology. In more recent years though, it has become known as the Suicide Forest, with it being one of the world's most used suicide sites. In 2003, 105 bodies were discovered in the forest, exceeding the previous record of around 78 back in 2002. Jumping forward to 2010, the police recorded more than 200 people having attempted suicide in the forest, of whom 54 were successful, which is absolutely devastating. Now, some people blame this horrific trend on the forest's association with demons in Japanese mythology. However, others credit it to the tightly packed trees, which make it easy to get lost in the forest and muffle sounds, in turn providing an isolated location. As you would expect, many spiritualists have visited the forest who have called the site a hotbed of paranormal activity. These people believe that the suicides in the forest have permeated the forest's trees, which in turn has generated paranormal activity in the area, preventing anyone who may enter from leaving the depths of the forest. Many hikers who decide to make their way through the dense forest will often mark their path with tape or string to make it easier to find their way out again, and those who visit say the forest is deeply unsettling, with the sprinkling of clothing and litter lying around. Coming in at number 5 we have the ghost of Stow Lake. The history of Stow Lake, located in the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, is shrouded in mystery. Stow Lake is said to be haunted by the spirit of a woman who, after attempting to save her child who fell in the water, drowned in the lake. Now, legend goes that this woman, referred to as the White Lady, so always the White Lady, wanders the edges of Stow Lake as she searches for her baby. It is said that she can even be summoned by visitors, with the most active area surrounding the lake being near the Pioneer Women and Children statue. The legend states that the statue, depicting a woman with children, houses the spirit that haunts Stow Lake. People have noted that at night the statue seems to have 3 children surrounding her instead of 2 older ones and one that is barely a toddler. Anyone wishing to summon the White Lady can do so by calling out, "White Lady, White Lady, I have your baby," 3 times, which seems very cruel if you ask me. Now, if she believes you, the woman will appear before you and will ask for her baby back. However, for doing this, the woman will haunt you for the rest of your life. However, if you tell the woman you don't have her baby, legend says she will drag you into Stow Lake and give you the same death she suffered. It is also noted that the White Lady of Stow Lake is not the only ghost to be found residing in San Francisco, of course, and if you wish to explore the creepy haunted history, you can do so with Haunted San Fran Ghost Tour. Coming in at number 4, we have the Dark Watchers. The Dark Watchers is a name given to a group of entities in California folklore purportedly seen observing travelers along the Santa Lucia Mountains. The Dark Watchers are said to be tall, sometimes giant-sized featureless dark silhouettes often adorned with brimmed hats or walking sticks. They are phantoms that are said to lurk inside the Erie Mountains. Legend has it that the Dark Watchers have claimed to be seen staring out at the vast space below the mountains before completely vanishing. Now, this legend may be attributed to the Chumash people who historically inhabited the central and southern coastal regions of California, with the ghostly figures first appearing in their Indian history and lore. The cave walls were donned with drawings drawings by the Chumash that depicted these phantoms. John Steinbeck also went on to write about the Dark Watchers in his story Flight, where the creatures were described as dark forms against the sky. I quote, "Pepe looked suspiciously back every time or so, and his eyes sought the tops of the ridges ahead. Once on a white barren spur he saw a black figure for a moment, but he looked quickly away, for it was one of the Dark Watchers. No one knew who the Watchers were, nor where they lived, but it was better to ignore them and never to show interest in them. They did not bother one who stayed on the trail and minded his own business." Steinbeck's son, Thomas Steinbeck, would also grow up to report having seen the Dark Watchers during his childhood, and later, along with artist Benjamin Brode, collaborated on a book titled In Search of the Dark Watchers, where they go into the history of the legend and interview locals who claim to have seen them, such as the famed Big Sur resident Billy Post. In more recent history, sightings occurred in the 1960s by a Monterey High School principal.
Coming in at number 3, we've got Tomino's Hell. You've likely heard of Dante's Inferno, which, while often quite disturbing, doesn't come with a curse attached. Tomino's Hell does! This poem by Saijo Yaso depicts a young boy descending into hell for unnamed crimes. Sweet Tomino is going to Jigoku, the Buddhist hell. Speaking of Jigoku, if you haven't seen the flick of the same name by Nobuo Nakagawa, drop what you're doing and watch it right now. Not only is it a fantastic visual marvel of a movie, it'll also make the story much scarier through its depiction of Buddhist hell. It's never explicitly stated in the poem, but it appears as if Tomino is heading down for killing his family. Apparently, if you read this poem out loud, you'll be cursed. Misfortune and death will follow anyone who decides to recite it. Back when this tale was first circulated, there were plenty of folks who would post on 2chan claiming that they were going to try. Photos, videos, and sound clips of people reading the poem were posted. Many said that nothing happened to them, but some others never returned after saying the cursed words aloud. The poem itself isn't very long, so I considered reading it aloud for everyone out there, but kind of like not being cursed, so maybe I'll wait for a day when I feel more open to eternal torment. Feel free to try yourself though. Coming in at number 2, we've got Kuchisake-onna. It's hard to come up with a Japanese urban legend more popular than the slit-mouthed woman. She's on every list, featured in every article, plastered on the front of all sorts of movies, manga, and anime. This is an urban legend with staying power. The story goes that late at night, a woman wearing a surgical mask will approach lone travelers. Oftentimes, these solitary strollers will be children. She'll ask them, "Am I beautiful?" And if you answer no, you're cooked. She'll pull out a pair of gnarly scissors and kill you on the spot, so be nice. If you answer yes, she'll remove her mask, revealing a gruesome, grotesque grin. Her mouth has been lengthened, and what I mean by this is that her face is slit from ear to ear. Then she'll ask you the question again. If you answer no, well, you're still cooked, you die. But if you give her a positive answer, you're not much better off this time. Kuchisake-onna is so relieved that someone thinks she's beautiful, she'll want you to join in on the fun. The scissors come out and she'll give you a smile just like hers. Now you're twins. If you'd rather keep your life and your facial structure, you can try to confuse her. By answering with wishy-washy statements, you might find a window with which to escape. Some say that answering her questions with more questions can also result in confusion. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, how did she end up with that slit mouth? It's been said that she was an adulterous wife and her husband caught her cheating. In a rage, he cut her mouth, asking, "Who will think you're beautiful now?" Yikes. The surgical mask has always been a popular accessory in Japan, as it's considered good manners to wear one when you're sick. Now that masks are everywhere as a result of the current pandemic, do you think Kuchisake-onna will be making some appearances elsewhere? And finally at number 1, we've got Akamanto. This one scares me because of where it tends to happen. See, Akamanto, or Red Cloak, is a masked spirit who appears before folks using public restrooms. I like my privacy, thank you very much. There are many different variations on this legend, but usually the spirit will appear in a red cloak and ask someone on the toilet a question. Red toilet paper or blue? Just like the Matrix. However, there's less actual choice here. Pick either one and you'll end up the same. Choose red and you'll die a bloody death. Choose blue and you'll suffocate to death, turning blue. Even if you decide you'd rather use plain old white toilet paper, you'll be pulled to hell by a ghastly apparition. There is no winning here. Or is there? Apparently, you can leave the loo with your life if you politely refuse both options or if you ignore the toilet ghost outright. I mean, that's probably what I would do in the first place. Nobody needs some weirdo offering them premium TP when they're using the public bathroom. I accepted my one-ply fate when I came in here. You can also just run away without wiping, but come on, we've got standards, don't we? Apparently this myth dates all the way back to the 1930s. This toilet paper ghost has longevity. From open fields to public washrooms, nowhere seems to be safe, eh? Oh, well, it does seem that if you just ignore the ghosts, you're not in trouble. Some folks can't help it though, can they? How else would horror movies get made? Coming in at number 5, we've got water blades. While this may be a tale told around the world, it seems to have a strong presence in Italy. Sure, the name sounds cool, maybe even conjuring up some images of wicked aquatic swords, but the reality of water blades is horrific. In fact, if you really like water parks, you might want to skip this entry altogether. I don't want to just ruin them forever for you. We've all heard of razor blades and other assorted sharp objects showing up where they shouldn't. Halloween candy, playground equipment, door handles, and more. But those are all relatively controllable once you've realized the present danger. Water blades, on the other hand, will rip and tear until there's nothing left. The urban legend floating around implies that some folks have been fastening razor blades to parts of water slides at popular theme parks in Italy. You can imagine what might happen if someone went slip sliding down one of these horrible traps. Maim is an understatement in cases like these. Thankfully, this urban legend seems to be staunchly set in the false category. For something that purportedly happens quite often, reports of such activity are very rare. The actual affliction of rapidly descending individuals doesn't seem to happen. Still, the legend must be very effective, especially because it seems to get told so often. I suppose the lesson to be learned from this one is be careful using public facilities. Good advice, especially in these days and times. Coming in at number 4, we've got Pier Zanfretta's alien encounters. Everyone knows a friend of a friend who claims to have been abducted by aliens, and if not abducted, then maybe they saw a UFO or something. But this Italian security guard has a claim to fame so out there it might as well be in outer space. He says that he was abducted by aliens 5 times over the course of 3 years. All abductions happened in Genoa, all apparently while he was still working the night shift. Skeptics, as skeptics do, dismiss these claims, but apparently he's given details of each abduction while under the influence of truth serum. Pretty astronomical, don't you think? The very first abduction occurred late one night. Zanfretta was patrolling and saw what appeared to be 4 lights. After seeing this, the engine, lights, and radio went out in his patrol car. Thinking, as most security guards should, that there might be thieves about, he ran over to investigate. He did not discover a group of miscreants though. No, he found himself face to face with some extraterrestrial life. A UFO was floating above and he was abducted by these outer space dwelling individuals. While approaching the so-called scene of the crime, Zanfretta was grabbed from behind. When he turned around, he saw a creature he could only describe as an enormous, green, ugly, and frightful creature with undulating skin, as though he were very fat or dressed in a loose gray tunic, no less than 10 feet tall. This, of course, was only the beginning of Zanfretta's galactic incidents. He's run into interplanetary assailants again and again, sometimes even when he had backup. Following some encounters, special investigators were called in. They discovered distinct markings on the ground that didn't seem of human origin, but nobody but Zanfretta has laid eyes on the creatures themselves. His claims have intensified the belief of an alien presence near Genoa and has made a bit of a celebrity out of the now elderly security guard. His last abduction took place in 1980 while he was under close observation. These days, he claims that the aliens contact him directly, communicating with questionable motivation. So if you're at all interested in close encounters with the third kind, Genoa might be the place to be. Coming in at number 5, we've got Kune Kune. We'll kick off the list with a tale that seems to transcend geography entirely, the tale of the disappearing hitchhiker. Kune Kune is India's answer to the ubiquitous urban legend. For those unfamiliar, the disappearing hitchhiker is the tale told around the world with different variations based on where exactly it's being told. Usually it involves a downtrodden person looking for a ride on the side of a remote road. If you give them that ride, they'll enter your vehicle but disappear soon without a trace. If you ignore them, you'd better be ready for trouble. Back to Kune Kune. It's been said that there is a stretch of highway known as a hot spot for misfortune. Accidents would occur regularly, earning it the name of Kune Kune. Soon, people began to believe that the whole area was haunted. These beliefs were compounded when reports of ghostly women started cropping up. People told tales of seeing a woman in a black sari holding a baby, trying to flag down vehicles. If you pick her and the child up, they'll get in the back, remain quiet for a bit, and then disappear entirely. However, if you ignore their pleas, the woman will curse you, dooming to die in a car accident. The amount of accidents around here are high too, making the tale of the dangerous woman even more believable. Make sure you're being a good Samaritan when cruising the back roads, eh? Coming in at number 4, we have the Gin House. A jinn is an intelligent spirit that may appear in many different forms. Often they're malevolent, causing problems for people all over the place. Sometimes they will possess people, other times they'll lead them astray. However, like most ghostly figures, it is possible for a jinn to have good intentions. But that's not the case in this tale though. People tell of a house haunted by such a spirit, the location of which seems to vary. It seems that there was once a family who lived in said house, but they were scared off by the spirit. Or maybe something more sinister happened. These days though, the jinn is more likely to get into harmless trouble. Mostly. Apparently it will throw visitors' shoes out of the house. See, it's considered good manners to remove one's shoes before entering a home in India. The jinn uses this as an opportunity for mischief, throwing the unattended footwear out onto the street. Many have claimed that they never believed this, and that is until they saw it with their own 2 eyes. You might think that a few flying shoes wouldn't be enough to condemn a house as haunted. Maybe somebody's just pulling a harmless prank after all. However, there have been reports of odd and upsetting sounds coming from within the house too, making the haunted tales seem a little more real. Add in the fact that many have reported becoming ill soon after entering, and you've got a house that might be best left alone. Who knows? Maybe the house is structurally unsound and the jinn is actually a friendly one, encouraging people to leave before it falls in on them. Or maybe I'm just being optimistic. Coming in at number 3, we've got ghastly future seers. Folks who claim to be able to see the future are found in pretty much every culture too. There's something about not knowing what will happen next that makes some people desperate for information. So of course, psychics and soothsayers have come out of the woodwork to try and leverage some expertly vague predictions. However, when somebody can predict events extremely accurately over a short period of time, you have to wonder if something paranormal is going on. There was a case in Pajgani where a woman claimed that she could see 15 minutes into the future. At first, her family thought she was joking. Soon, she was able to tell them exactly what would happen over the next 15 minutes with incredible accuracy. This both impressed and terrified her family. After her predictions became more truth than fiction, she started denying herself food. She wouldn't eat, drink, or take medication. To make matters worse, the family refused to seek help for her as they were afraid of the stigma surrounding her purported abilities. They were eventually able to get some help from a paranormal investigative team who brought holy objects imbued with positive energy. The prevailing theory was that the woman was possessed by a dark spirit who was then using her for personal gain. A side effect of this was her future sight. Once the paranormal team showed up with their implements, the spirit appeared to leave her body, taking with it the Nostradamic effects. Could demons and spirits provide us with visions of the future? It's hard to say for sure, but this story seems to say so. Coming in at number 3, we've got the Mazzarol. Speaking of non-human entities, let's take a quick trip to the mountains. The Italian Dolomites, to be specific. No relation to the comedian turned movie star recently played by Eddie Murphy. This mountain range sits stoutly in northeastern Italy and is full of legends and secrets. Plenty of cryptids and creatures are said to roam these mysterious mountains, from fairies to wizards and witches to mythical royalty. But the creature that piques my interest the most is the Mazzarol. In the valleys of Belluno province, this myth is still well known and widespread. This tiny, playful creature resembles a gnome, so make sure you tag your friends and let them know they've been gnomed. Whew. Now that I've made my requisite meme reference for the day, I can get to the actual details. This tiny, cap-wearing dude dressed in red wanders around the woods. For him to simply wander would be kind of boring though, so of course there's some darkness to this myth. He loves to find folks traveling around dusk and then lead them astray. Anyone who treads on top of his footprints is compelled by forces unknown to follow them all the way back to the no man's cave, after which they will forget everything about themselves. Many a tourist has fallen victim to the Mazzarol's mean-spirited trickery. Some legends even say that the Mazzarol will abduct the occasional individual and make them his slave. The story goes that the gnome managed to steal a young woman away from her village and put her to work. He was kind during this time and taught her many skills: cheese making, butter churning, and more. He even promised to teach her how to extract wax from whey. However, he was never able to complete this final task, as one day a hunter stumbled upon the missing girl and brought her back home. A remedy made from goat's milk brought her memory back, and the girl, overwhelmed with gratitude, taught the villagers how to make cheese and butter. To this day though, nobody has figured out how to extract wax from whey. Maybe someone will seek out the Mazzarol and find out though. Coming in at number 2, we've got the Witches of Monte Matana. More mountainous mythical monsters are waiting for you. If you make your way out to Monte Matana, you will find world-class hiking and some unexpected extracurriculars. That's right, you can go witch hunting. Years ago, it was said that this mountain was a popular spot for witches to perform rituals and human sacrifices. They practiced their magics up on the crags and cliffs and amassed great fortunes. Reincarnations of these witches are said to return often in search of their material wealth from past lifetimes. The reality of this wealth is often called into question, but that doesn't stop treasure seekers from braving the range. Some of these booty seekers say they've encountered violent witches willing to slit their throats, but have somehow made it out alive. Maybe other proverbial pirates didn't make it out so well. Either way, Montematana is well known for magic, and you'd probably be best off if you just avoided making the perilous journey at night, unless you'd like to run into some witches, and in that case I'll reserve judgment. And finally, at number 1, we've got Poveglia Island. This tiny island about a half-mile from Venice has been shut off from the public for years. Some call it the Plague Island. Why? Well, I'll get to explaining. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, this fortified island was used as a quarantine station. Over 160,000 infected folks were brought here to live out their last painful days away from the healthier portion of the population. Many mass graves have been discovered nearby over the years, proving how unfortunate anyone who paid Poveglia a visit really was. Napoleon stored weapons on this island as well, and when it was discovered, many small battles were waged. This, of course, added to the island's body count. Even later on, a mental hospital was built on the island. Legends say that one of the doctors in charge would treat his patients horribly, often torturing them and tossing them from the bell tower. With all these horrifying historic events taking place on the island, it's no wonder that folks think it's haunted. In fact, there's absolutely zero public access to this island. The folks in charge have deemed it too dangerous to visit. Venturing out to Poveglia is literally illegal. What could they be hiding out there? The wild and wicked history makes folks think that there might be something sinister waiting in the sandy shadows. Anyone else craving pizza all of a sudden? Maybe pasta and parm? Or am I the only one who gets hungry after talking about ghosts? Is that weird?
Coming in at number 3, we have Polybius. Polybius is an urban legend that emerged back in the early 2000s, with it concerning a supposedly fictitious arcade game called Polybius. The legend describes the game as part of a government-run crowdsourced psychology experiment which was based in Portland during 1981. According to the legend, the game apparently produced intense psychoactive and addictive effects in players, with the machines being said to have been periodically visited by men in black for the purpose of data mining the machines and analysing the effects. Now, while the entire legend doesn't quite hold up, there are some pieces that are actually based in fact. Brian Dunning, host of the Skeptoid podcast, did some digging and discovered that a 12-year-old named Brian Mara had become sickened during a 28-hour marathon video game contest in Portland back in 1981. Just a few short days later, the Portland arcades were raided by federal agents who seized cabinets that were being used for gambling. Add these two events and add some fictitious elements and you have the legend of Polybius. Coming in at number 2, we have Candyman. The Candyman is an urban legend that tells the story of a murdered slave who returns from the dead in search of revenge if you say his name 5 times. In 1992, a Candyman movie was released based on the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker. This in turn sparked 2 sequels, as well as a slew of paranormal games that friends dare each other to play. According to the urban legend, if you look into a mirror and chant the name Candyman 5 times, he will appear behind you and kill you with his hook. Now, although this is a legend and you will likely not invoke him by saying his name, there is some reality to the story. In the Candyman movie, after saying his name 5 times, Candyman breaks through the medicine cabinet in a bathroom in order to kill his victim. This part is factual, believe it or not. Back in 1987, the Chicago Reader published a story about Ruth McCoy, a woman living in a Chicago housing project who called 911 insisting she was being attacked. When responders arrived, they found her shot body, with investigators determining that her assailants had gained access to her unit by climbing through her medicine cabinet, which adjoins the apartments. The complex was supposedly built that way so that plumbers could attend to leaks by simply removing the cabinet to reach the pipes. However, this in turn resulted in people using this method to burgle and murder. Absolutely terrifying. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Cropsey. Once upon a time, Cropsey was a mere urban legend, the boogeyman of Staten Island in New York City. Cropsey was rumored to be a homicidal madman who had escaped from a mental institution and had a hook for a hand, who supposedly hunted children and dragged them back to the tunnel system under an abandoned hospital. Parents would often use Cropsey as a way to frighten their children into being good and staying close to home. The urban legend became so popular it inspired a 1981 slasher movie called The Burning, which very quickly became a cult classic. However, what was thought to be fiction quite quickly became reality. In the 1980s, Cropsey came to life in the form of a deranged killer who really did kidnap children. He was called Andre Rand. Rand was a janitor at the Willowbrook State School on Staten Island, which would eventually be closed in 1987 due to corporate punishment and rampant sexual abuse. In 1981, Holly Ann Hughes did not return home after going to the store to buy soap. Rand supposedly pulled up, pulling Holly into his car and driving away. Then again in 1983, 11-year-old Thais Jackson was reported missing after her mother had sent her to purchase food. She never returned. She was last seen exiting the Mariners Harbor Motel in Staten Island days after Rand had been released from prison. Then in 1987, Jennifer Schweiger was reported missing, and her body was later found underground after a 35-day search. Rand was ultimately convicted of the crime. A documentary about the madman was made entitled Cropsy, in which they speculate that Rand may have been involved with Satanism. Ultimately, Rand was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, with eligibility for parole in 2037, at which time he will be 93 years old.